Today, we're going to take a look at two pieces of equipment from relatively unknown manufacturer from China, Wenderji. If you know Wenderji, you know why we're reviewing these things, and you're going to be curious to see what we have to say. If you don't know Wenderji, well, pay attention, because I think they say something very interesting about the future of coffee equipment. In front of me here, we have this. This is the Wenderji Liter. It's around $2,000, give or take. This is a compact, tablet-controlled, dual boiler, pressure profiling, flow profiling espresso machine. Tablet driven, full of data, all the bells and whistles. This is the Milo Play grinder. It's a 64mm flatbed grinder, like many grinders these days. It's a variable RPM grinder, like many grinders these days. It's about $1,000, and it has, I think, perhaps the most interesting grind adjustment technology I have seen in a domestic grinder to date. In the world of espresso machines, having an Italian-built espresso machine is seen as a kind of premium thing. Having a Chinese brand espresso machine was kind of looked down on for a long time. I think that's been the case for a lot of things. China has long been the manufacturer of all of the premium devices for all the premium brands all around the world. Your Apple iPhone is built in China for a very good reason, but Chinese brands were kind of looked down on. And I think that's a very big mistake to be making, and I think I'm not alone in being very interested by the shift recently in Chinese brands. I think about, in coffee, Time More or Buku, premium brands, and what's interesting is that they can now not only aim to sell things outside of China, but with the kind of current explosion of coffee consumption going on in China, there's also a massive local market for them too, that wants Chinese brands, that wants premium Chinese brands. And the rest of the world, well, we may reap the benefits. Now, for a long time, Chinese brands had a reputation of imitation. And some of that's fair. And look, as I look at this, we're going to have to talk briefly about imitation in just a second. But I think in the past, where people considered Chinese brands followers, we're pretty much at a tipping point, I think, where Chinese brands in coffee may well become the leaders. That's really the question I'm interested in answering by having a look at these two things here. Like I said, we do have to talk about copying, and if you look at this, it will evoke another espresso machine. It's going to remind you of the Decent espresso machine. It's similarly compact, big tablet on top. Decent got a lot of abuse when they launched for the design of their espresso machine. People really, really hated the design of the Decent. Not everyone, but some people were very vocal. They did not like it. However, by moving into that space, by pioneering that space, Decent pretty much own compact espresso machine with large display on top, which is kind of cool, because I look at something like, I don't know, the Synesso ES1, and I think, oh yeah, it's kind of Decent inspired, even though that's an American company building different kinds of machines, but compact machine, display on top, and there are others out there, and this most definitely falls into that niche. It looks a little bit like a Decent. Does it match the Decent? That's going to be a different question, and one that we will get into as well, because on paper it may look sort of similarly spec'd, but is it? But starting with the grinder, how have these been actually to use to make coffee with? Well, I think the grinder is a very good explanation of the fascinating way in which I had a set of expectations, and in some ways this met them, and in other ways completely missed them. The way that they missed my expectations and the way that this frustrates me is super interesting. Firstly, this thing looks pretty good. These come in white or black pretty much. We went for the white. The materials choice on this is weird. Bunch of it plastic. Now, down here, this main body is metal, but this is plastic, and confusingly, and I don't know how well it'll show up on video, this material is different to this one, and it's a slightly different color. It's a sort of whiter white than this. This is sort of verging into cream here. Weirdly, it just feels a bit cheap. Now, the metal body in the places you expect, I think of the money you're spending, you want a more premium feel around the bits that you're touching. The body, just a tiny little bit of heat all the time, just a little bit. For some reason, this grinder constantly pulls about 7 watts of energy, and it seems to spend those watts mildly heating the motor. It's not hot, because it's not enough energy to make it hot, but it's not cold. It's just a bit odd. This grinder is a single dose grinder, as you can see. It's got bellows on top. There's no hopper going on here. You have a knocker here. And then this thing here. This, on paper, on the website, very compelling, very exciting to me. So this is a dial and a button. This thing runs the whole grinder. You can control all the different things. You can control time. It's a timed grinder if you want it to be. You wouldn't use it like a sort of doser grinder where it's going to grind for 8 seconds to produce a fixed dose of coffee. You'd use it as like an auto shut-off feature where you'd let it run for 40 seconds after starting. That way you've got time to add coffee, grind the coffee, bellows the coffee, and then eventually it'll switch off. You can change the RPM through this thing. You can go in and go from 200 RPM up to 1000 RPM. Very exciting. But the most interesting thing about this thing, the most fascinating, cool, and genuinely innovative bit of tech in a home grinder is that you control the burr gap, the grind adjustment, digitally. See, on here, it has a micron reading. Right now, 140 microns is my burr gap. And I can control this micron by micron with this dial. I can go in and just twist the dial and it'll change my burr gap. Did you hear that little motor? Do it again. One of the things we wanted to test straight away is this accurate? Is this repeatable? Because this would let you do something like set your espresso grind, let's say at 145 microns, and then your filter coffee grind, let's say 450 microns. And then you could set them each to a alphabetical setting, right? You could have setting A is espresso, setting B is filter, and you could just move between the two. You could say, I want to grind for A, I want to grind for B, and it will adjust itself to those settings. Does it actually hit the grind settings? If you grind at 140 microns or 145, and you move it to 600 and you grind a bunch of coffee and you move back, is it exactly the same setting? Yes. Yes, it really is. It is very repeatable in that regard. I really like digital micron adjustment for a burr gap. I think it's very cool. It is available in some commercial grinders. I think Mahlkönig has the Omnia, and some of their grind by weight stuff has sort of micron control. There are grinders like the Zerno that have a micron dial, but that's still manual. This is incredibly precise and incredibly repeatable. I think that's very, very cool. That's genuinely innovative, and I like it a lot. However, this grinder has pretty terrible retention. Now, we've worked retention out. I would say, not me personally, I haven't done it, but grinder manufacturers have worked retention out. It's really not much of an issue in almost every modern grinder that we review. With this, it's really an issue. How bad could it be? Well, we're generally chasing a 0.1 gram retention. You know what I mean? If you put 18 grams of coffee in, you'd like 17.9 to 18.1 out. How do you get more out? Well, sometimes a little bit is retained from the previous shot, but 0.1 of a gram, very acceptable, very normal. Across 40 dose tests where you weigh the in, you weigh the output, you bellows, you knock, the variance was 0.2 grams, with the extreme being over half a gram, which is too much. Just way too much. I find this thing seems to hide coffee in strange places. I will say I do not like the knocking mechanism on this. It seems to collect dirt, coffee, in quite unpleasant ways. Again, a weird materials choice. This just looks kind of filthy very quickly. It's not good. And it doesn't really work as a knocker either. I also tend to find that immediately after grinding coffee, bellowsing, knocking, if I then adjust the grind setting, a little bit of coffee tends to fall out then, which is kind of weird. I'll be honest, it's very confusing to have a grinder nail such a challenging technical problem, but fall down on a less challenging problem that most people have solved. And here's the thing. I have no doubt that it will be in the not too distant future. I don't think this is a big challenge to overcome. They just have to choose to overcome that problem. Because otherwise it's pretty compelling. It is useful to have presets on this thing. I've taken the preset for A here, so you can see you've got RPM, you've got grind time, and you've got your micron setting. You can set these individually, tap in, scroll up and down. One thing about doing all of this through this click wheel is one, it's not the most robust feeling click wheel in the world. Sorry, click wheel display, apologize. Sorry, I've made the grind change. It's going up to 500 microns now. There we go. Shh. Take it back. That one. I'm causing trouble. Sorry, I was like 500 to like 160, which is a long way for this grinder. It's almost the full range. I think it goes up to 600 unless you start messing around in secret settings. Anyway, the point is you have a click wheel and there are kind of long press, short press, and double press interactions. It's confusing. I keep getting it wrong. Even after all this time, I will still double press when I need to single press or long press, and that is a little bit irksome. So I feel like the UX UI is another area this could definitely improve upon, but it's still pretty cool. But what about the coffee that it grinds? Well, I think it's got a separate problem, which again, should be very solvable. I think it's got a regrinding problem. If your burrs can sort of get more coffee beans into them than it can get out of the grinding chamber, because let's say it's a little bit obstructed coming out of the grinding chamber, then you end up with some grounds stuck inside the burr chamber where they may be reground. And when you see regrinding, you see two things. One, the generation of a bit of heat, so the grounds coming out of a grinder tend to be that bit hotter. And two, a lot more fines generated, which is less desirable if you're chasing clarity in an espresso. You may get a bit more texture, but you'll often get a bit more muddiness with it, and it'll lack a bit of sweetness, maybe a little bit harsh as well. The source of most of our pain, I suspect, is here. Now, I think pretty much since the Mythos 1, there's been a kind of idea of a clump crusher, where you have a little bit of metal designed to break up large clumps coming out, helps reduce static a little bit too. If that little bit of metal that's kind of breaking the clumps is too stiff or sort of angled badly, then it will just restrict the flow of coffee out of the grinder, causing that regrinding issue. You can also see how much coffee is just stuck to that little bit of metal there. We don't want that. It's not a complex fix. Please fix it. It would make a significant improvement to the quality of the grinding as well as the grinding experience. Before we make coffee with it, let me just have a quick look at the espresso machine, and after that, we'll see how they combine. The Lita. Their probably more popular machine so far has been the Data S, which is a sort of bigger, slightly more decentier version of this machine. I spoke to someone who distributes both of those where they're based, and they recommend that I take a look at the Lita. A little bit cheaper, more compact, I think better looking, if I'm honest, which was more compelling to me. Starting at the top, we have a tablet. But here's an interesting twist. Doesn't come with a tablet. Nope, nothing at all. Doesn't come with any sort of device up here whatsoever. They would argue, in fact they do argue, you don't need one because you can make coffee without it. You know what I mean? There's buttons on top, you can steam, you can do the stuff. You don't need a device, but the device lets you do stuff. You can use your phone. Many people probably have a spare tablet lying around. I don't like this as a truth, but we all maybe fell for the idea that tablets would be some sort of solution to something. And they're very cheap these days. You don't need a highly spec'd tablet to run this. It's not complex software. So you could just pick up a very cheap tablet if you want to. We have an iPad here at the studio that we're using. It's a bit like Apple not giving you like a charging cable because you've probably got one. Doesn't make you feel great even if they're right. As I said, it does have its own little display over here, little circular display, which will do some very cute stuff and also give us some information. And then the grip head here, which has a couple of capacitive touch buttons and one physical button. One physical button for the whole machine. If you will allow me to talk about this button just briefly. Well, try not to say the word button too many times, but probably failing. That's the steam button. And as buttons go, it's just a little bit, I don't love it. It's just if you're going to have one physical button on the whole machine, make it a good button. Make it a good tactile button. That just feels a bit cheap in a way that it probably shouldn't do. I don't love capacitive touch buttons, so I would rather have a physical button than a capacitive touch button, but it's weird to just give me one and not three, I guess. I don't know. It's a weird choice. It's a weird button. It's not bad. I just like a nicer button is all. Let's draw a line there. You do have a flow control. This is a sort of a touch sensitive dial, so you can manually profile your pressure if you want to. I don't want to, if I'm honest. Nothing about that is compelling to me. I want the machine to do the job that humans are bad at, but you can do it if you want to. And then there's just a straight brew button that will brew whichever profile you've set up. Profiles. Ooh, we're in the wrong app. This is the beta app. There's a standard release app. The beta app is themed on this year's Chinese New Year. So this is a little horse down here. Let me show you the normal app. So we have to connect to our espresso machine. Let me actually bring you back to the simpler place. Let's go to easy mode. Look at this. So easy. Now this you could see working pretty well on a phone or a smaller display. You've got your preset profiles here, and you can just hit a profile and then you can brew and away you go. However, most people who are buying a machine that can do all the bells and whistles and do all the fun stuff probably want the professional mode, which is what you saw before. And when we brew, you'll see a bunch of charts sort of displayed on here. And these are our profile choices down the side. Across the top, we have some other options. Oh, you did this to me last time. Come on now. Come on. Just, please. Some bugs in the software, if we're honest. In the temperature mode, you can control the temperature of the brew boiler and the steam boiler. As I said, this is a dual boiler machine, so you can control the temperature of those two things independently. You can even switch them off independently if you want to. If you just wanted to have this as a brew unit and never steam ever, you just turn your steam boiler off. And it's done. It's easy. Less power consumption, that's cool. You can turn your brew boiler off if you want a very expensive steaming box. Temperature control in here of each boiler. This is a saturated group head, so it means there's water kind of flowing around the group head itself, theoretically keeping it stable. We'll get into performance in a little bit. So we go across the top, you've got like a cleaning function set up. Less interesting for right now. And then connections, where things get potentially interesting. Now you'll see we can connect to a smart scale. I can remember how to turn on a Buku. These will momentarily have a conversation and appear and begin connecting. Yes, I would like to connect to each other. Now, as of recording this, Buku is the only brand of scale that will connect to a Wendergy machine. So bear that in mind. We have the latest Buku here. If you didn't see our video all about coffee scales, that'll be linked in the description down below. So we now have a scale which we are connected to. Ooh, grinders. We can connect to the grinders. These two can talk to each other. That opens some interesting possibilities up, doesn't it? Or does it? You can see in here that these two are paired, and that's good. And then if you had one of their commercial grinders, you could also pair to that too. But we don't have one of those, so we haven't. You do have a little web browser symbol. This is kind of interesting. So here is a feed of people's posts from their machines. It might be drinks they've made, it might be profiles. You can look specifically at different curves that maybe are popular, if that's going to load, and you can download somebody's curve and profile to your machine. Interesting, I guess. You can also follow people if you want to do that. So there's a kind of classic social sharing piece in that. Over the years, there have been a lot of machines where you can build a profile for how you make espresso, how you make filter coffee in some cases, and share that with other people. I haven't really ever seen it work in a meaningful way. And it does not make, I think, a community, despite the fact that you have these kind of community features. And so you then have a kind of more complex profile sort of page where you can build stuff out. And then we've also got, if I just come home here for a second, our various built profiles down the side. You've got featured profiles as well. And then you've got the history of things that you've brewed and how they've brewed and those kind of things. For a little while, our history did not work, which is why we ended up downloading the other version of the app that I showed you before. But then they updated the main version of the app and it's working much better. But just for disclosure, been a little bit buggy in some strange places. Now, Wendergy themselves really are, first and foremost, as I understand it, a commercial espresso machine manufacturer. They're not huge globally, but I think they have across all units capacity for something like 5,000 machines a month. So by no means is this a small company either. But it feels like the domestic side is much newer for them, but also where a lot of their attention is currently lying. So it'll be interesting to see the way that this thing builds and iterates. As you come into a profile here, you've got various choices. I'm trying to find something interesting to play with. Tell me about light roasted high extraction. And I can edit it. And so this is the profile editor here. You will see there's some choices, which is, does it require a weighing scale? In which case it will brew by weight. Generally speaking, brewing by weight is much more accurate and repeatable than the alternative. You can, on this machine, brew volumetrically, which means the machine will know how much water it has sent towards coffee. But that does not necessarily correlate perfectly with how much water gets through the bed, gets absorbed by the bed, gets discharged out of the solenoid valve or anything else in various machines. Ultimately, you don't necessarily get 38 grams out if you put 65 grams in every single time. If you want 38 grams out every time, then you need to brew with a scale and have the machine brew until it hits that target mass in the cup. There are profiles that will let you sort of switch between the two. But this is a weighing scale one, and you'll see our target weight here is 42 grams. Again, you could change that very easily with the little up down. So say 44 grams now, because why not? And you'll see our various stages here. Now, this is a pressure profile, not a flow profile. And so you've got 5 seconds at 1 bar, 4 seconds at 2 bar, 3 seconds at 8 bar, 3 seconds at 7, etc., etc. So it goes up eventually, and then it steps down. You can use flow if you wish to, which will try and moderate the pressure to hit the target flow. Anyway, let's hit save. Now it is ready to go. It is ready to brew. As we just quickly walk through the rest of the machine, steam wand. Very nice, perfectly fine button for the steam. These days, it feels pointless to review steam wands. Most people have it right. It's only worth talking about a steam wand if someone doesn't do a very good job and somehow it doesn't steam very well. This steams very nicely. It has no hot water spout on this model. However, if you've seen a recent video about Americanos, you'll know that you don't want a hot water spout anyway. You want some nice fresh cold water and you want to steam it hot. Missed that one? That's linked in the description. Materials, solid metal, cheap plastic, cheap plastic. And again, it kind of bothers me that the choice is made. This, fine, whatever, I have no complaints there. This piece, this drain box, just feels a bit grubby quite easily. It feels a bit cheap. I don't know how much money is being saved by having this be this material. It feels pretty light. I'm sure it's robust enough, but it just doesn't look like it's going to have great longevity to it. It does expose the water tank, which is just under here, and that will slide forwards. I don't want to do it right now because it's full of water. And then closes down there. A couple strange choices for me on the materials that I hope may be upgraded in the not too distant future, because I think it would just add a layer of positive feel and quality to the machine, which I think it deserves it, if that makes sense. I don't think it feels in other ways like a cheap machine at all, except in those funny materials choices. We're making coffee. I don't know where we're sort of set here. I've gone for 145 microns. Tiny little note. Interestingly, you can't adjust by a single micron, kind of. If you set it from 145 to 144, nothing happens. You've got to get to 142, so a 3 micron adjustment before it will move. However, if you desperately wanted 144 microns, you can go from 145 to say 120 and back up to 144, and it will give you 144. That's too much information, isn't it? Let's have a little listen to how this sounds as it grinds. So firstly, not the most robust sounding motor. It's a pretty chunky motor on here. It's like a 400 watt motor or something like that. Now it's definitely warm. It feels like it's working pretty hard. I do wonder about this whole regrinding piece being a part of that. The grounds, yeah, warm. And then you'll hear that noise where until you've bellowsed everything out, the grinding process sounds a bit funny until you kind of clean it through and it sort of sounds empty again. There's a good bit of coffee around. Give me. There's coffee here now, there's coffee around here. It's a bit messy. This was spritzed, a little bit of water, a little RDT, as they say, before this went in here. Actually, out of interest, if I just adjust the grind setting now, I'll clean that up in a minute. Go! Chart on top, you can see pressure. So that's a sort of flow rate, if you will, of how much liquid per second. As you can see, very little. We've gone a bit too fine. And you can see cumulative beverage mass will appear in here. This is cumulative volume of liquid sent. And then right at the bottom here, just growing, down at the bottom there, cumulative mass in the cup, which is very little, because we've really missed the grind setting on this one. And done. At 63 seconds, it may not be an ideal espresso beverage for us, for a variety of reasons. We can have a look at our chart. It's kind of interesting here. So you can see our blue line at the top is pressure. So we had the slow ramp up, then a spike, and then we stepped down and we got stuck, or whatever that pressure was, like 7.5 bar. Here initially, the red, you can see quite a lot of liquid went past the flow meter heading to the puck, and then got kind of stuck there. And then eventually a little bit more added, and then the yellow line here is the sort of flow rate into the cup below. Not a great shot. We should adjust the grinder. We said these talk to each other. So you're maybe thinking, ooh, can this tell this the right grind setting? No, it can't. It should be able to. I'm surprised it can't. I feel like it may be possible in some of their other equipment, but right now the communication is not that. If I set up my ultralight sort of high extraction profile and I know what my correct grind setting is, let's say it's 170 microns, and then I have a traditional 8-bar profile that's going to be more like 150 microns in that case. Then as I switch between the profiles, this machine can set the grinder to the sort of preset micron setting if that's what I want. So I can push a little button, it'll set it all up and it'll do those things. Obviously you have to know what the correct target is first. There's no smart adjustment where it's like, oh, you definitely have this too fine, we should move X microns coarser. I would think that can't be that hard to implement. Other manufacturers are doing it. Again, I think Malkoenig is doing that with their kind of grind by sync stuff. Untapped potential, potentially. Let me, the meat bag, fix the grind. So I'm doing it on here because apparently the meat bag shouldn't be doing it. It should be showing you the computer. The robots do the thing much better. 170 microns. Let's see if things go a bit better. So again, low pressure, low flow. Pressure kicks up. Flow a little better, maybe still a little bit slow, we'll see. 41 seconds. Which is kind of cool as a side note. You might say, well, how big an adjustment is 20 microns? Turns out, about 20 seconds in this case. That's not linear. Okay, just don't think that like a second per micron. Don't do that. No, incorrect. Should we see what happens if we go 6 microns finer? The problem is, you feel like you have to bellows hard to get it out, but then you end up blowing coffee back out of the dosing cup, which is obviously not ideal. Temperature, I'm curious how warm this is. 35 degrees. It's a bit warmer than you'd want it to be. It's not outrageously warm, and I suspect if we lowered the RPM, maybe we'd have a better time. But it does just feel that touch warm. All right. All right, I think I'm happy. I'm going to taste it. You obviously may have noticed this little display here the whole time, which will give you that additional information if you don't have a tablet on top. Can this make good espresso? Cheers. We've reviewed machines that cost like 50 quid on this channel and said that they can make good espresso if you have a good grinder, good beans, good water. You grind stuff right, you brew it right. This is no exception. There is no reason that this couldn't make good espresso. It can make very tasty espresso. To some extent, I think the quality of the espresso, for my preferences, may be slightly limited by the grinder and the way that this is working. As a point of comparison, we used a particle size analyzer, had looked at this for the same kind of espresso flow rate and recipe as the Timemore 78S. So a little bit cheaper, slightly larger burr set grinder, but a comparable grinder, I suppose. And you will see that the particle distribution on this isn't quite as good. It has a much broader range of larger pieces, and if you look at the surface area, you see a lot more of the surface area is coming from very fine pieces. And so the espresso from this grinder can be a little bit muddy in comparison to a nicer grinder. From a technical perspective, this is incredibly capable. It will heat water and push it forward at varying pressures. It will chase varying flows. It's not quite as good as something like the Decent at hitting flow rates and working out when to compensate and compromise pressure to chase a flow rate. But it doesn't stop you making good coffee with it. If you're putting nice beans in, good, suitable water in, get your grind right, yes, this will make you good espresso. That doesn't mean we didn't test the technology in this. So it's a dual boiler, so you would expect a good deal of stability, especially from a saturated group head. This, interestingly, in our testing, we used this case 2, ran a little cold initially. So the first 2-3 shots, just brewed a little bit cooler than target temperature. Eventually it got to a stable sort of target temperature, which was close to what you were asking for. To me it says, yeah, if you're really chasing temperature, you need to pull a good bit of water through this group head first to make sure it's fully heated, because something in here is losing a bit of temperature. Does that matter? Is it tasteable? I'm not confident. And certainly if you're having a bad espresso, it's not because it's 1 degree Celsius off your target temp. That won't make it bad. Pressure-wise, if you ask for a fixed pressure, it's reasonably accurate in delivering it. Again, when you're measuring pressure at the group head, you'll never see the same pressure as you will do at a pump. So if a pump is giving you 9 bars, typically if you measure at the group head, you'll see around 8, because 1 bar of pressure is being lost through the puck itself. If you closed it up, you put a blank in, then you might see the full 9 bars kick through. Here, a bit of variance. We'll put the data on screen. But not problematically so. I don't feel like it's going to be a problem in achieving good espresso. Pretty well extracted. It's tasty. It tastes like the coffee we put in. There's no obvious defects of flavor or brewing in here. It doesn't taste channeled. Could I optimize it further through temperature, through pressure, through flow? Yes, of course. But it can make tasty espresso. The question that I haven't answered before I wrap up here is, how does it compare to the Decent? Because that's the kind of benchmark, the kind of DE1. How does this compare to that? And it requires me to talk about something outside of the machine. The hardware isn't bad. I don't think it's as good. I don't think they've solved the same problems to the same extent as the Decent. But what's really missing is community. Like, yes, there's a community tab here, but what Decent has, and has had for a very long time, is an incredibly powerful community around that machine, working on improving the machine, working for each other in the community, whether that's skins for the display, whether that's analysis tools, whether that's just answering questions in this sort of Decent users only forum. That's a fascinating place to go and read and see what's going on there. That is a community that really rabidly believes in the Decent, wants to support it, wants to promote it, and that is incredibly powerful. John Buckman, founder of Decent, has understood communities from the beginning. The open source aspect, I think, of the Decent feeds into that. This does not have that, and having a community tab baked into the iPad app does not give you community, not in the same way. So I didn't really explicitly ask this question at the start, but are Chinese brands like Time More, Buku, and Wenderji coming for coffee manufacturing around the world? Like, are they going to be the dominant force? And from what I've seen, not yet, but maybe in the future. Like it's fascinating to see how far this has come, how competitively it is priced. Obviously, this is not a broadly available machine yet. I think they're working on export more and more, but when you have such an interesting and large market as China happening on your doorstep, you don't necessarily need to be worried about consumers in the UK or the US. And so before you consider this, do think about, do you have support for it? Yeah, we bought this directly and we would have had pretty limited support, which is entirely fair. If you'd bought from a local distributor, you'd have a lot more support. So do always consider that when choosing a machine. What's the after sales like? What's the support like? That stuff matters. As always, I would like to thank my Patreon for the support that allows me to go out and just buy these. We bought these direct from Wenderji, and I can review them, and I don't owe anyone anything. And through a contest, these will find a home with one of my Patreon supporters, and I hope they're enjoyed. I am going to pay a lot of attention to Wenderji now and in the future. Yes, there are some pretty big mistakes, as I see it, in these products. Not huge, but surprising. And certainly not insurmountable. I believe that they will be overcome relatively quickly. I don't know, maybe we just have a particularly bad unit here. I've seen sort of mixed responses online for some of our complaints, but this is not a difficult problem to overcome. That they haven't overcome it is interesting, surprising. It tells me something. The choices made here are occasionally surprising, and they tell me something. But I don't think substantial challenges lie in the way, and if they're motivated and interested and they begin to engage with their users more and more and more, then I would expect to see incredibly quick iteration and prices that are very competitive. No one has the manufacturing capacity of China out there, and so I think Wenderji are well placed. These are fascinating, and I hope you've enjoyed a little walkthrough of them. And I would like to hear from you if you have one of either of these or a different Wenderji product too. How has your experience been? Have you found other challenges that I haven't found? Have you had the same issues as me? Is there something that I have missed or didn't see that is both good or bad about them? We would love to hear your experiences as owners, as enjoyers, in the comments down below. If there's something about this that we didn't answer, you want to know about, ask away. We'll see what we can do. For now, though, I will say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.